Hey, wow. Welcome everybody to Greater Life, Greater Impact. You're all jumping on here. That's awesome. Um, Today we have an exciting topic because it is Halloween and it is a full moon and there was an eclipse portal and we're coming through all the things and people are getting wrecked and we're all feeling these feelings and we're all getting squeezed through a giant imaginary spiritual funnel. And so I wanted to talk about that today. And so I thought, you know what who better to talk about these kinds of things than my dear friend Jennifer Saunders? And Jennifer has her partner here, Ligia, Ligia. Thank you for being here, both of you guys. I just love you both. You're such an inspiration to me. I love the stuff that you're putting out on the internet and in your Facebook groups and where your people are, where your people gather around you. And so why don't we kick it off by announcing to the rest of everybody what we're talking about today? Do you want to kick off the topic?
Ooh, we're here to talk about fear. I know it. I just felt everyone go, "Ah, happy Halloween."
Yeah. Happy Halloween. Happy Fear Day, everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
fear's such a present, can be such a present thing. So what a better day to talk about it.
Yeah, I know. Right. I was thinking about that as I was sitting here just pondering this morning, getting ready for the day, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Halloween. There was a full moon last night. We're just coming through this
Right.
massive eclipse portal, right? Like there's a lot of fear bubbling up in a lot of people all over the world right now, and it is for good reason." So I want everybody to just kind of sit in your chairs for a minute. If you want to take some notes, you go ahead, take some notes. But I would love for you guys to just ponder for a second on what are your deepest, darkest fears? What are
I
you the most afraid of? Go ahead,
I
Jen.
would actually like to hear that as well. Like, because I find that so fascinating. Like, one, when we get asked what our deepest fear is, a lot of times we freeze in fear because we're like, oh, I don't really know. But I would love to hear that too.
Yeah, well, what happens to me is I'm like, I don't want people to know what my darkest fears are.
Ah, fascinating.
Yeah, so
Fascinating.
I hide them and bury them because I don't want people to know I have fear. But the truth
Why?
is,
Why don't you want
Yeah,
people to
why? Tell
know?
me why.
oh, let's go there.
Yeah, let's go there because
Let's-
that's such an important thing. Okay, the only person I can see on my screen, we kind of changed ours so that we can see you and I better. No, what's good is hi Lisa Lancaster. I can see your cute face and you have a beautiful smile. And Mike from Idaho. Where in Idaho?
I'm from Boise.
Okay, we're on the opposite side of the state. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I
yeah,
just want to say thanks for all of you who follow Janet and are part of this conversation today. It's so cool to like be with her crowd of people and to feel your guys' energy. And so thank you for joining us today as well and allowing us to be a part of what you guys do.
awesome. And if you guys want to unmute your cameras and your mics and chime in, like please do that. You're more than welcome to do that. We have some great participation on these classes from time to time. So feel free to show us your faces. We love seeing you and unmute and chime in.
Well, I
Yes.
already put on the chat that my greatest fear is disgrace.
Disgrace.
Ooh, dang.
That's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. I think
Disgrace. I love
one
it.
of my greatest fears, like I have several that I've been working through, but one of my greatest ones is just the loss of like having people reject me or hate me or, see me as something other than who I am. I don't like that feeling. That's not a good feeling.
Other than who you think you are.
Other than who I'm presenting. Right, right. And so that's probably why I bury a lot of my fears deep down inside. I don't want people to see all of that stuff. But it's good for that to come out. And why is it good
Right?
for that to come out?
Why is it that you don't want people to see that? Like, why
Uh,
do you have the tendency to want to bury it?
I think because it's so vulnerable and it's so raw and it's so exposed. It's like for me, the same feeling as being out in public totally naked.
Oh.
Right? Like
have you
that's what
have you ever done anything like that?
no, not in,
Oh,
maybe I should.
I know someone who can tell you some stories.
You know, that
Let's
reminds
hear
me.
some more fears first.
Yeah, let's hear some more fears. If you guys want to drop them into the chat, if you all want to drop them into the chat, we could go over some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
Me of-
So disgrace, Lisa said hers is disgrace. I know when people would ask me that, it's really easy to give what I call just like a surfacey answer, like I'm afraid of spiders, which I'm not afraid of spiders, I just don't really like them. Or I'm afraid of heights, but it's deeper than that. For me, it comes down to obliteration. I'm afraid to be obliterated, to just like have everything that I've done not matter, my life not matter, and obliteration. That's typically what it comes down to for me.
that's
Um,
deep loss.
Yeah.
Well, when you're talking, it reminds me of like one of my biggest fears in moving and having my artwork, and because I couldn't take it all with me in the move, that my children wouldn't get to see that part of me anymore, and they wouldn't be that part of me wouldn't be a part of their world, and I would be erased. So when you say that,
Erased,
that's
yeah.
what comes to mind for me.
Erased.
Fear of being erased,
Someone
and
says,
like your
"Oh,
My
my
sorry.
child died. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
yeah, very much. Is it Josefina, however you say their name? Thank you for sharing that. I in my life have felt moments of that as well.
Yeah. And if I can just share, Leah has faced some pretty big fears over the last little while, moving clear across the country and into another country. So many unknowns, so much letting go, so much, the perception would be loss. I think a lot of us are afraid of losing. We're afraid of letting go. So you've faced a lot of fears over these past
Yes.
Well, even just being feeling almost reliant, like I know I'm still my own independent person, but the culture around me is different. The way I work is different. When I go out, like
Yeah.
the even driving is different, and like my friends aren't here. Like it's a lot of shifting, and I feel like that can put. I don't ever want to put any of that pressure on the person that I'm with, just because I want to be solid in myself. But it is a lot of shifting and a lot of change. But I think I had more fear of the letting go, like leading up to it. Once I was in it, I don't think been as fearful, because you're in it. You're moving through the actual fear, and it's not. I think that's the biggest thing that fear has taught me is it's the anticipation that feels the biggest, and where the most
Really?
stories are
Instead of
created.
stories we've created
Yeah.
and just hang on to for dear life, even if they're a bunch of ooey.
And it's the part of you that wants to stop, but in this process, it's continuing to take the steps and make decisions that you can go back, but it's harder to, because you've made these commitments, and you just keep moving forward, and you go through that fear, and I don't know, that's the biggest thing I realized. It's not nearly as scary as I was anticipating it to be.
Yeah, once you stop hesitating, once you stop clinging, once you step in, like, man, that brings me back to the whole experience I had with you, Jen, when I was staying at your house and we did the arrow break, and that
was a big one.
oh my gosh, that was a big one. Someone just said in the chat, I don't know what I'm afraid of. Like, that's a great question. I don't know what I fear. Well, when you have an arrow at your neck, and you're being told to walk into that arrow and break it, all of a sudden, you know what you fear. You know what you're afraid of.
That was such a beautiful moment, because I've been telling Janice, we've been having a conversation about fear.
Can you share about the arrow, just for anyone
That's
who
what I'm
doesn't
gonna do
know?
right now. Okay. And I've been telling her, like, oh yeah, I've done things like run 100 miles at once. I've climbed tall mountains. I've traveled
Wait. You ran 100 miles 3 times in 1 year
Yeah, I did that.
in the mountains.
I did that. Yeah. And there's a lot of fear that comes along with that, but it's not usually what people think. so I was telling her these things I've done. I'm like, oh yeah, I've walked on glass. I've walked on hot coals. I go outside in cold temperatures and play. And I'm like, and one of the things I do too is I've broken arrows with my neck. And then all of a sudden I'm like, boom, wait a minute. I facilitate this, and I thought I might have one in my closet. So I walk to my closet. Janet's sitting on my couch, which is just right here in front of me. And I walk over to the closet and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have one arrow that you use for this exercise. And guess what it had written on it? Something like breakthrough fear. I was like,
Conquer.
are you kidding me?
It was
I was like, yeah, conquer fear. I was like, this arrow is meant for you. And I said, do you want to do this? So I've never facilitated that exercise in that way before with only one person, but I've done it in rooms full of people with loud music going, and there's a lot of energy of like excitement and a lot of energy of like, oh, what am I doing? I have an arrow like right here in my neck, and that was happening in my front room, like one-on-one personal, and it was really beautiful to watch Janet move through that process.
You had me
and I'm
write
not
down all my fears on the tip end of the arrow. Before we even started, I wrote down, I had to sit with my fears for a minute, and I processed through a lot of that. And then you asked me to speak them out loud, and I couldn't speak them without crying. I started crying, and then you said, how does that feel? And I said, pretty damn bad. Like, it feels terrible. Yeah. And then you said, do you want to let that go? And I said, yeah.
We have a choice. We don't have to let it go. We can hang on to all of that. It serves a purpose one way or the other. It's just, is it serving the purpose we want to have? Does it serve the purpose we want to be living at those moments in our life, or where we're wanting to be headed?
Yeah. And then you said to me something to the effect of, can you thank it? Can you have gratitude for the lessons and for the learning? And I was like crying.
You're like, what? You want me to do what?
Yeah. So there was a lot of introspection that happened in the beginning. And then why don't you go ahead and take a turn and tell what you did next? What's the next step for this? This was so profound to me.
Yeah. So after she had written down what her fears were and what she was wanting to pierce through into new levels and new like timelines, more or less. On the other side of the arrow, I invited her to write what she was breaking into. So if she's going to pierce these fears, what is it that she wants to replace them with? And sometimes we don't have to replace it with anything. Sometimes it can just be we can create a space holder. We don't always have to stuff something in. Like life itself is a vacuum, and stuff will rush in, mostly our fears, if that's what we're getting rid of, unless we fill it with something else, or we create just a space, like a space holder. Because sometimes we're not exactly sure in a moment what we want. One of my favorite quotes, it makes me think of Maria Rainer Rilke's the last name. And the quote where he says, you got to live the questions. We don't always know the answers to the questions, and we walk ourselves. Someday we'll live into the answers. That's kind of how I've chosen to live my life is. And I didn't always live like that. I wanted to know the answers. I was given the answers. I had all the answers until I realized there's bigger things. And fear was a huge driver in my life. So
well,
I asked Janet.
Fear is a huge block too. It holds us back.
It absolutely can be. Well, and by driver, I mean, it stood there with the brakes on and the emergency brake on and stuff on the wheels, like we're going nowhere. Yeah. It was in control. And so I asked Janet, write down what it is you would like to be moving into. What are you replacing this fear with, or what would you like to replace this fear with? Because one of my favorite sayings, and that I tell the people who I get to work with, is we're going to take fear for a ride. We're not going to like obliterate fear. Fear doesn't want to be obliterated. It has a purpose in our lives. It has an intention. It has a reason. And it's not the big scary monster we think that it is. When we turn and face it and we hug it and we say, you get to come along too. I'm scared, you're scared, we're going together. The only rule is I'm the one who makes the choices, not you. You can come, but I'm in charge. So that we're not like just getting rid of it. It's kind of like fear's like a child who's
Yeah.
like poking, and it's telling us stuff and it's saying, I'm scared, or hey, I have this really cool thing you should do, and you should be scared because it's going to mean you're going to change. And it's instead of like getting rid of it, and we say we're going to embrace it. So we're going to take it for a ride. And that's what I was asking Janet to do. And I said, what is it that you want to, we're going to take fear for a ride through this experience. So what is it that you're moving into? So then she got to write down some of those things. and then I told her how I would usually facilitate this exercise, which is very it's fun. It's fun on my end. It's probably not fun for the people watching because we raise the energy of the room. We intensify the feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do this. And then it was Janet's moment of like, I have an arrow in my neck.
So when you first told me about that, I thought it was like you walk into a wall, but
Oh,
you
no.
had it like here, right? With
Yeah. So Janet has an arrow in her neck and I hold the other end. That's the other piece is I got to be her support person. Yep. I held it steady with my hand. I held the pressure at her neck so she couldn't back out of it. I didn't push because that's not my job. My job is to be supportive as she's moving through it. And
what
then
did
when
you
it
ask me to
happens
do?
and it breaks, then I get to hug her.
Yeah. What
What
you
did I
ask me-
ask you to do?
Yes. Step in.
I asked you to walk through the arrow, to walk into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you do, Janet?
I stood there and cried like a baby. I was like, I can't walk into this arrow. I'm gonna die. It's gonna go right through my throat. This is so counterintuitive.
It feels
Who
like
does
it.
that? It feels like you're going to
And she did what she did what a lot of people do. And that's when you feel the pressure of something that feels scary or like it's going to pierce you or like you're going to die from it. And when you take that step into it, you kind of sidestep it or you try to step under it or you like are doing all the little things to get around it instead of just applying the pressure needed to move through that. Yeah, dance around it, to walk through the scary experience. And it took us a minute. It took us quite a few minutes.
I
that
did
was
all those things.
Yeah. And the support person is just like, you can do this. Just walk straight in. It's like the craziest place to be in, to say, yeah, you have an arrow at your neck. I'm going to stand here and watch you walk right through it.
Yeah. And there was one time where I mustered up the courage and the gusto and I was like going to go for it. And I leaned in and then I backed off and you were
Hesitation.
like, see, that's what we do.
Yes. Hesitation will get us killed. It's that moment of like, we're going to do something and then we're in the moment and then we back out. Like hesitation can kill. It does kill. And that happens in lots of areas in our life. But at the same time, it's just that it's also can be a recognition of like, okay, I'm going to take a step, but I'm still feeling all of these things and just, it's just that moment of knowing that fear is right there and it's chattering loudly at you, like it's screaming in your brain. And you have to find that peace right here that says, trust me. There's a song, Trust Without Borders. Trust Without Borders. That's been one of my themes for this year. And I know Leah's as well. And we'll talk about, when we talk about fear, what some of the fears we've been facing in this last year and really what my fears are about. But it's about coming here. You have to find your own voice and not the voice of what. Okay, let me ask the question to the group, like, what is the voice of fear for you? Is it actually you? Or is it a belief that you've been taught? Is it a grandma, a parent, a school teacher, a church leader, a community leader? Whose voice is actually fear? Is it you? Or is it someone else who has taught you something, or a belief system that works, doesn't really work, most likely doesn't work because it's not yours? What is the voice of fear for you? I would love to hear some thoughts in the comments. Janet, how about you?
Wow, I think it is all of those things. I think it's programming. I think it's yeah, gosh, I don't know. I think fear is its own demon. It's not, I know it's not my voice. I know that I'm not fear. I am love somewhere deep down inside. And that's why I think facing your fear, whatever the fear is, facing it, stepping through it, walking into it, overcoming it, letting go of the things you got to let go of, whatever, whether they're beliefs or voices. I think it's one of the most powerful tools for us accessing the deepest levels of our being. So it's,
Yeah, and I don't even believe necessarily that it's like overcoming fear. It's learning to be friends with it.
Yeah.
Because fear's always going to be present in one form or another. And
Yeah.
it's the taking the action steps to move through it. Like Janet, the next time you break through an arrow, you're going to be scared. More than likely, you'll still have some of that fear because the feeling is still there, but you have proof and you have experience now under your belt that the fear lessens and becomes smaller. Its voice becomes quieter. And I've done that arrow break. I don't even know how many times. And I can honestly tell you, each time I'm still a little apprehensive because you still feel, you still feel. And there's always going to be areas where you may become friends with fear in one area, and then it's like, I'm not fearful of this thing anymore. And then another one goes, well, let me show you.
Yeah.
You think you overcome fear? Let me show you.
Do you think that going through exercises like that, where you are faced, you have to face the fear and you have to deal with it and you have to be with it and be present with it? Do you think that really helps us as human beings to dissolve the superficialities, the facades, because like I said, I will put up a facade so people can't see my nakedness, so people can't see my fears, right? And I think a lot of people do that, but
This is the one thing I love about our relationship, Janet, is I can call you out on your shit.
I know.
I'd be like, no, I see you.
Yeah.
And that's fearful when we know that other people can see us. Also, that can be fearful because we feel exposed, we feel naked, we feel like, but at the same time, embracing that fear and being like, oh my gosh, that person can see me. There is actual, there's so much beauty in that, and knowing that somebody can see us and that we don't have to hide, be this little ball or shell of a person hiding in dark corners because we don't want to be exposed. And all of our, again, I think it comes, someone wrote tribal and culture learn. We learn to be fearful. The voice of fear is my own. Is a lot of things that we're taught of, like how we should behave, what we should be like, how we should show up, and it's all other people's opinions of what that is. And so we become so afraid, or we forget who we are as our own sovereign beings. Because I know you've been talking a lot about sovereignty this year, and what that even means for us. And so to act in our own sovereign beings and sovereign can be freaking scary.
I think when you can be seen, though, that gives you a level of safety that it allows you confidence to be brave, like, because you're not only being seen for the scared parts of you or the less than parts of you, your whole self is being seen. So you can practice more in those areas.
Agreed. I totally agreed. And as you guys are talking, I'm just keep getting this thought, like, give a short history, Jen, of how you started recognizing and overcoming like fears in my life, stepping out of like the circles and the bubbles that I had been put into. I live in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's a very conservative place. There is a very predominant religion here. I grew up in that religion. And there just came a point in my world where, and I would guess most of you most of you have probably experienced this, because if you're hanging out with Janet, you're high enough vibing souls that you recognize for yourself, like you just know something's not quite right. And and I noticed that probably fairly early in my life, and I would say maybe even a little bit in my 20s. I remember standing in my college apartment overlooking the foothills of Pocatello and thinking, I don't belong here. And not like in Pocatello, but on this planet. Like, I'm actually not from here. It was this like crazy, just like expansive view in those moments of like, there's so much more to who I am as a person. And I think started recognizing some of what would be deemed fear. In And I've always done things to take care of myself, because I feel like for me, it's always about, what am I teaching my children? Even as adults, what am I teaching my children? And if I can't do the thing, then, or if I am exhibiting martyrdom as a parent, or practicing Satan's plan as a parent, meaning I'm in total control and not reminding my kids that they get to trust themselves, they get to make their own decisions. My job is to help guide them in safety to make those decisions, and to encourage them to make mistakes, and to know that they're just mistakes. It's like, take 2, take 85 as many times as it is to learn it, instead of like, this is the way, you have to do it this way. And there's fear in that, because people around you are like, that's not how you parent, that you got to take control, and so as I started getting up into my adulthood, I started running. And I started running as a way to, well, there was other things as well, but running is one of the biggest things. Is I started to run as a runaway from my life. I just needed, my husband had gone to prison. I was really being faced with my own sexuality, and that what I was doing wasn't working in a lot of areas of my life. And so fear doesn't want to be replaced. That's a really beautiful question. It's not even about replacing it. It's about, in my world and in my experience, it's not about replacing it. It's about learning how to work with it and to love the fear, not replace the fear.
Yeah, because it doesn't ever go away.
Doesn't go away. It's never going to go away, because there's going to be new things and new ways to learn how to love fear in your life, or situations in your life that feel fearful. That's a really beautiful question, though. And so, Katie, thank you for asking that and putting that out there. And if other of you have thoughts on that, feel free to share that. So I started running as a way to run away from my life. But what I found is I ran into my life, because I ran with questions. Running was fearful for me. I would run in the foothills. I would run in the mountains. I would run on uneven surfaces. There was wildlife. There was cold. There was rain. There was wind. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I can run in another country? That came into my world. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, that means I have to get a passport. I have to experience flying by myself. I have to, like, all of the other things that then become what could become fearful things. And so I started to expand my world and learn to take fear for a ride, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to run into another country. I got to hit send in 30 seconds or the price is going to go up. Clink. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go to Ecuador. Now I got to get a passport. Now I got to do all these things. And I've run with this company in 6 different countries. Absolutely incredible. Each one had its own fear that came along with it. Then I started distance running. All of that comes with its own fear. I ran a 50 miler before I ever ran a 10K. And I just like, my life is I just jump into the things because why not? Like, I also did things where I was learning. I wasn't necessarily fearful of my body, but maybe fearful of exposure or being seen. And I do what's called freedom photos, and I will often be in beautiful places, mountainous, not very peopled. And I will take my top off and we take a picture from the back in these beautiful places. And I may have gone through a time where in overcoming fear, may have run naked in the foothills a couple of times. I took shots around Alaska with people not watching, with me and my nudeness, and always with something fun covering my butt crack. Uh, it just, there are lots of ways that you can start moving into and stepping. Lisa, I love that you're laughing your head off right now, and I'm just gonna, those were really fearful things for me. And some people will look at it and be like, oh, you're just being an exhibitionist. It had nothing to do with that, because I have no desire. But it was the fear of me owning who I am inside myself, and and this beautiful structure that I get to move around here on this planet, and all of the amazing things that it allows me to do, and really learning how to appreciate it in ways that I was taught to not appreciate it, and overcoming the fear of that. So there's always going to be fear, and it's just really about this summer. We just completed our first surviving life and leadership retreat on the main salmon, and we paddled 76 of 80 miles, class 2, 3, 4 rapids, and I was fearful. I was fearful like almost every day, but I was also excited and learning and growing. And the way you start overcoming, not overcoming, but embracing fear and letting it lessen in your world, is to start taking action on the things that feel fearful. I was telling Janet while she was here, you can ask me to float that river, and yeah, it feels fearful, or you can ask me to stand on the top of a pole and jump off, and there might be a little bit of scaredness, but I'm going to be able to do that stuff piece of cake. It's the getting to know myself. That's where the biggest fear comes in, is like, actually, if you guys look deep, it's the actually getting to figure out who you are inside of all of this bony, fleshy stuff. That's what's fearful for me. And like when Janet says, she wrote a question, who are you? I don't like answering that question, because one, I don't like surfacey answers. And it's really challenging for me to tell you who I am, other than I'm the daughter of a king. I'm a godlet. I'm an incredible spirit having this earthly experience of whatever it is I get to do here. And a lot of people, Leah and I were having this discussion last night with a challenge that we're getting ready to start, which, are we good to present that challenge? Janet's going to do
totally.
it.
Let's just let the conversation flow. And
we're talking.
Yeah,
go for it.
Let's share about what you guys are doing to help people sit with their fears and make peace with their fear.
So we're run a company called the Righteous Rebels. And what was interesting is I had a coach at the time that I was coming up with. I was rebranding, because thank you to, all of the big C word stuff, my business tanked the way that I was doing it. And so I've gotten the opportunity to rebrand and look at things differently, and what the world actually needs now and what I need now. And we're getting ready to start this 100 days of expansion, which is really an opportunity for you to start taking action on your fears and the things that feel fearful right now, instead of waiting till the end of December to go, what are my New Year's resolutions and what are my goals, which I don't believe in, actually. It's more about, what do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? And so we were talking about being. What do you want to be? And then I'm like, wait, that's not the answer. That's not the question, because going back to the who are you, people say, well, I'm a runner, I'm a speaker, and that's not who you are. Those are things that you do. Those are things you get to experience on this planet. And so we were talking about the fear of like answering some of those things, because I don't always know the answer to those questions. And that's fearful for me, because it taps into the little kid pieces that are like, oh, you're going to look dumb, or you're going to look like you don't know what you're saying or what you're doing. Or my answer is, come experience me. You want to know what I'm doing? Come experience me. Come do what we're doing. And an easy way is the 100-day challenge. I'm actually going to let Leah talk more about that, because I need a drink. and some air.
So the 100-day challenge is all about starting some of those habits and with momentum, getting into those habits before things get busy. We want to offer some ideas on how to maintain that, like in the craziness of the holidays. And we're tending to indulge more and looking for comfort because, things are being thrown at us all the time. So part of the 100-day challenge is to have accountability and to do it as a group, have biweekly check-ins and just any kind of support to get us through the busy time of year. And then you go into the new year with momentum. You already have a base, a foundation to build on, and you don't feel like you're starting at zero when that clock goes to midnight.
Right. You're not doing all the normal tactics of beating yourself up or just try to hurriedly write some things down.
Yeah, because you already got
that you're gonna like forget in 3 weeks anyway. So the 100 days is intentionally to take you into like February.
when we're usually, tapering off those New Year's resolutions, and those habits are falling off. I think it's like mid-February. Most people aren't even practicing.
They're like, resolution what? What did I even say that I was gonna
I'll
do?
try again next year, or I'll try next week, and then we keep it off.
I love that you guys are focusing on expansion. It's interesting because when I think about fear, I think about all the things you cling to. So fear is
Oh,
about
man.
clinging to like
Yes.
clinging to safety or security or stability
Yes.
or the people or the things or the stuff you don't want to lose or stuff you don't want to expose or whatever. Like fear is all about clinging, but expansion is it's about letting go. All the things that you
And
can
learning
let
how to do
go.
things in a
Well, and what I love a different way, letting go, and what I love about expansion is for me, it's, we talk about growth a lot, and growth for me is more of an upward, which is fantastic, but there's all these other expansion for me is like all of the directions that we can go. I talk a lot about testing edges. What are your do you even know what your edges are, or do you stay we've been reading a book called he's so validating my whole like concept and life experience, the comfort crisis. We've gotten into a place where we just like to be comfortable, and fear keeps us in those comfortable places so beautifully. And so, like, do you even know what your edges are? Do you even know what your edges are? So like, where to push and expand from. And so that's kind of really, again, the undertone of what this 100-day challenge is knowing your edges and being willing to push them and push yourself through discomfort.
I
think
love
of
that.
that wheel. I don't know, and
Thank you.
in
Go ahead.
some spaces you see that wheel like it's like a pie, and it's got your career, it's got spirituality, it's got relationship, and then I don't know, I've seen it in planners, and you kind of rate where you are in that wheel.
Yes.
And it can look lopsided, but I
Draw the lines like,
yeah.
yes.
And so it makes this funny looking wheel, and I think the intention is that we're going to be all well rounded, but depending on what part of our life we're in, what season, that wheel is always going to have some contortions to it. But I remember saying to someone that it never ends. Like, you're always growing, you're always expanding, you're always like shifting in what's a priority to you at that time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because this question comes to mind, and we kind of talked about it a little bit ago, is what makes you afraid of yourself and finding out who you actually are? Like, what is keeping you in the space where like, no, I do this, I know this about me, I know who I am, versus like, you actually have no idea. Like, I think we can have a sense, like I have a sense, and I'm actually more fearful of my greatness and my bigness, because maybe it's because people can't handle it. And it means that when we're in this space of overcoming fear, knowing who we are, it can be lonely.
Yeah.
It can be lonely, and lonely is not a fun place to be. And so I think for me, that's a fear place of like, I don't want to, so I'm not, I don't want to expand because I'm like, yeah, but if I do that, then people are going to follow. Again, it's the lost piece that Jen was talking about.
Well, this is why we're in groups like this, and why people like Janet or we do this work, so we have community, because it is lonely when you start, looking at things through a different lens, and you just can't see life the same, and the servicey conversations just don't, they're draining, if anything, because you want to have more depth.
Yeah.
Or more depth.
I
Yeah,
think
so if you're in
that-
that place of like, I don't know if I could go
I
for it,
think that
Janet.
fear is a great tool. I mean, if we're willing to work with our fears, right, like you said, rather than just overcome them, but willing to use fear as a catalyst for discovery of who we really are. Because I think it's behind those thresholds, when you keep pushing the threshold and pushing the threshold and expanding through it, there is a lot of self-discovery that happens in those expanding moments. We have a couple of comments here we probably should read.
Absolutely. I was just reading this one from Elliot. Oh yeah, the safe same. That's definitely a concept that I was taught a long time ago. We're not meant to be the same. When I was going through a lot of my life change as far as my sexuality goes, it threw people for a loop or 10, including Janet. That's kind of how Janet and I became friends, is we got to have some challenging discussions as people who didn't really know each other, as far as being invited to be on her program, and then her fear kicking in once she discovered that my sexuality, and then she's like, I don't know that I can have you on my program, which just we just dove headfirst into the fear of that and had these beautiful conversations and expansive conversations as far as mind opening and heart opening. And I love that. I heard someone I keep trying to read Elliot's comment here.
She says, I heard
laying
someone
down.
suggest that if you're scared of what people think about you in a crowd, then you should lay down in the middle of the public space and just let people wonder, what are they doing laying down, and practice being okay with it in a safe public crowd space to do that. Yeah, that would be a good way to overcome some fear.
Oh.
From Tim Ferriss. That sounds like something Tim would say.
I also want to address, Jennifer, what I feel like you do for me. And like you said in the beginning, you've been really good at calling me out on some of my bullshit. I'm not so good at that. I have a lot more timidity about myself, but you have done such a good job of holding me to that and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's relook at this in a different way. And you are good at holding space. You didn't do it in a judgmental way. You just held some space for me. And when we did the arrow break, it was the same thing. You held space that provided a little bit of resistance and a little bit of discomfort. And I had to step into all of that fear. And when I finally did step into that fear, after standing there in pain for 15 minutes, crying about it, then there you were to embrace me as a friend, just friend to friend. There was no judgment. You were just there to, talk me through it, to help me walk through it, to guide me to walk through it, to encourage me, and not to just placate my fears. You didn't go, oh, is that uncomfortable? Okay, let's go sit on the couch. You were just like, no, you can do this. You're stronger than this. You're stronger than your fears. Your body is more capable than you know. And you were really good at holding space for me in that. And I appreciate that about you. I appreciate that about my friendship with you. That is a rare quality that friends have for other. I mean, sometimes as friends, we just want to be nice, right? And we don't always want to call the bullshit out, or we don't always want to hold people to the fire or make them face their fear. And I will always be indebted to you for that piece of our friendship. And I just want you to know that I appreciate that. And I think it's a huge service that we can provide for our fellow humans is that holding that space, encouraging them to walk through it, encouraging them to be uncomfortable, and then being there on the other side when they do finally surrender. It's funny because the greatest pain for me in that whole process was standing there with an arrow stuck in the most tender part of my neck and leaning in and telling the story and trying to overcome. That was the worst part of it. And I did that for 15 minutes. It took what, half a second to walk into it and break the arrow. And when I did, when I was, like Leah said, when I finally took the step and was walking into it, that was the easy part. The hard part was hesitating and standing and waiting and listening to the stories going on. And that was what was causing the most of the pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for those kind words and honoring that piece of me. I appreciate that. I also think that could be part of the reason I don't have a ton of close friends because I just, it's a blessing. Sometimes I want to say it's a blessing and a curse. It's not a curse, to be who I am on this planet and to know that I have a big task.
Yeah.
And part of that is to, I teach what I live, and I teach what I experience and what I do. And I believe, with my whole being, that in order to hold those spaces for people, you have to put yourself in those places. You have to know how to hold that space for yourself. You have to be willing to put yourself in the fire, or through a wave, or on 100 miles, or sitting in silence, or sitting in all of the noise and knowing how to be quiet. You have to know how to do those things for yourself, or you can't really honestly, authentically do those for other people, because you're not going to be able to hold that space for them. You'll be impatient. You won't have the understanding of what it takes to move through the hesitation. And really, you want to be able to do that. And I encourage you to want to be able to stand in that place for yourself first and foremost. Like, get to know, that's the obliteration piece for me, is not knowing who I am, but it's the obliteration of my story, of who I think I am and what I think I can accomplish. The obliteration is actually the beautiful piece, because it's the obliteration of a story that either was created for me or by me.
Yeah.
And the
It's not
fear is
necessarily an identity that you're losing, but
absolutely, it's the story. It's what I think about those things. And the fear is actually, it's like a gentle guide into who I really am. And I have to walk into those fearful places to start getting those transcendent moments and those moments of clarity and understanding the pieces of discomfort in my life and what they actually, like, what mystery and message they hold for me, as far as like my absolute greatness, who I actually am underneath all of the skin and the bones and the stuff. It's the understanding of my soul and my actual greatness. And when I start gaining pieces of that, then I can hold space for other people. Otherwise, it's just, I don't even know the words. It just feels fake.
It's fake.
And we can't genuinely hold space, and we don't know how to say, like, when you ask me, what did you do next? I'm like, I don't know, because it just happened in the moment. All of that was a happen in the moment experience. And a lot of that I don't hang on to. I've wanted to, like, be really hard on myself that some things I don't remember. And then I get to remember that a lot of those moments are just being in the present, and they're not mine to hang on to. They're to experience and soak in the lesson in that moment, and then it's to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my thoughts in this moment.
Okay. So that's a good time for us to transition, because one of the reasons why I wanted to bring the two of you on here was because I want to share what you're doing. I think that what you guys are facilitating and helping other people, the way that you're helping other people to expand and be present and sit with their fears and learn about themselves and learn about sovereignty through fear. I think this is an important work. I really do. And I'm behind it and I want to get behind it. So I wanted to bring you here so we could talk about your 100-day challenge. We're going to post links in the description of this video once it goes to YouTube. So that will be there. You guys can follow Jen and Leah in that process. And I encourage that. But would you be willing to maybe segue into the adventures that you do and this next adventure that's coming up?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do for myself is every Tuesday I play. I have a Tuesday adventure, and that came because I was part of a book club that studied the 12 steps and other personal development stuff, and life changed, and I got to work, and I realized how important Tuesdays really were for me and my personal growth and expansion. So I switched my schedule to go back to date myself on Tuesdays. I have play dates. And then I kind of have built a business around that. And I've brought in the lovely Leah. So my part is the play part. Well, hers is too, because she's extremely playful, but creativity. So what do we tell people?
We bring people and ideas to life
Through play
and
and
creativity.
That's amazing.
So we've created a bunch of events that allow you to be in nature. I don't love holding things in conference rooms if I don't have to. Nature is our playground and it's our teacher. So we'll do things like hiking and camping and horseback riding, things that feel a little fearful or a lot fearful.
Getting out of your comfort zone and getting out in nature, because nature it's so healing, and it just brings you different parts of you to life.
There's so many lessons to be learned in nature. What's our one in August?
That is our Surviving Life Leadership River Trip. It's a 6-day trip out into the canyon.
Out into nowhere. You're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And once you start, that you can't just like drive up the road or get off the river and drive up the road. Like you're in it for those 6 days. And
there's no access to the river in these 80 miles. You actually have to take a boat to the lodge, and then it's a long drive out. Like there's nowhere to get. You can't jump off and go sleep in a motel somewhere or have warm food in a hotel, although they're going to feed you really, really well.
I think when we were talking about fear, one of the biggest things that I noticed that I didn't even realize would be a fear for me was when we met our guides. And they were so young, and I was like, I actually lashed out at Jen, and she was telling a story. I'm like, and I was like, I didn't even know what was happening, and I realized I was scared that I was putting my life for the next 6 days in these baby guides, and it was so what's that called, unfounded. Like they were so fantastic with us and so professional, and they knew what they were doing, and they didn't only have wisdom in the tactical sides, but like in just
they have life
life.
wisdom because they've chosen to do it differently. They've chosen to bend and break rules. They've chosen to just not get out of high school and jump into college. They actually have jumped into life. And their wisdom from ages 20 to 25 was mind-blowing. And they said to us, what would you suggest for us to do? We're like, keep doing what you're doing.
Like it's so good.
It was awe-inspiring. But this adventure is one that's gonna help you find your edges. And I like to tell people, think it's like just an adventure, like it's just a river trip. And I'm telling you, you can come try and have just a river trip experience. But if you are the same person at the end of 80 miles as you are at the beginning of it, we need to have a chat.
Yeah.
But it would be very challenging to be the same person, because the energy vortexes in this canyon are the same as the Grand Canyon or greater, or even in Sedona.
It's untouched by a human river.
Yeah, by human hands. There are no dams on this part of the river. The history and the women's history, like is so steeped inside these canyon walls, and like I
It's just
actually
like
had heard
small.
that, but my mind was blown by what it actually was. Um, but just the opportunity to be in that kind of quiet and to be in that kind of, we had gone through just after, well, there was an active forest fire. So there was some different energy in the canyon by way of still smoldering trees and watching life and nature actually happen in its wild ways and thinking, oh my gosh, sometimes that's how life happens for us. We have to be burned down and it's not comfortable and we smolder. And so just all of the amazing things you can learn on the river. And
The disconnecting from our phones, that was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. And it was a relief, if anything, and I didn't feel the constant need to be looking, or did someone message, or someone need me. Like I could just be in that experience, and just be caught up in the awe and the feeling of the water, and the sunshine on you, and just looking at the rocks. Like it was just like, dang.
there's a section of the canyon the entire day. I looked around and I'm like, oh my gosh, this canyon is alive. It's lit. And I'm not going to tell you what you see in that part of the canyon because the words are useless. You actually have to experience it. But I was like, uh, like, oh my gosh. And there and there. And oh, it was so amazing. Um, and the creative part is when you come to the discomfort of like being that quiet and that present with yourself. If you're a writer, if you're a content creator, if you're a speaker, if you're an artist, if you want to have space for your creativity to just
Flow.
this is the place to be because there's a lot of flow and there's a lot of quiet and a lot of connecting back to what's actually important, to what real life is, which is right here and not what we live every day. I know they try to convince us that this is real life. But if you want to experience real life, come do what we're doing and take that back with you into what you're doing. I think that's part of the greatest like ahas and experience of all of the fearful things that I've done is that I overlay all of those experiences onto my everyday living, not my real life, my everyday living, because that stuff is real life. And I go, oh, well, I ran 100 miles, I can do that. Or I paddled inflatable kayak through a class 4 rapid, or I swam through a class 4 rapid or got tumbled through one. I can do that. Like I can contact that person, or I can make that phone call, or I can write that letter, or whatever it is.
Because like it brings it into the physicality, like when you guys were talking about the aero break, and literally seeing how you dance around with doing things, but how we can apply that to how we dance around things in our minds, and how we don't always recognize that we do that. I was giggling before because I was thinking of how in some, what I didn't feel fear in the way that, like I didn't feel my heart racing. I didn't feel a chatter, but I did feel the need to sing and sing myself through, because there was one one bigger rapid that we got out of our kayaks for, and we went to scout, and she's explaining all these things, and there's a golden rock and some sort of flaky rock, and you go through here, and they demonstrate. And I kept thinking, she kept saying stuff about the flaky rock, and then Jen's like, yeah, the flaky rock, and I'm like, yep, whatever, I don't know, I didn't see a flaky rock, but here we go. And just singing
Yeah,
to
Janet,
myself.
that's what I thought too. I was like, you said you saw it, and it's important that you see it. Like, but if you just follow the lines too, and the guide, but
Then I sang to myself and made up some sort of Spanish song as I'm going along. I'm like, okay, I'll figure this out as I go. But that's how I handled that fear, and it just,
well, it was a way to bring you back into your body. And mine was to remind myself, get in your body. Get in your body. Your body knows what to do,
yeah.
and breathe. So mine looked like, instead of singing, it looked like this. Paddling and like being really present, being really present with myself in those moments. So
which is why I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. I know that I know there can be, self connection, God connection, expansion, higher levels of consciousness when you go out into nature and let nature teach you, and you let the experiences, whatever the experiences are that you have, because who knows what those are going to be, and you just allow it to unfold the way that nature is going to unfold it. I want that.
It's
I want
well,
that.
and I love that you bring that up, because this is part of why I do it in the way that I do it. Is the physical body is the slowest piece to learn the lessons,
Mhm.
and the brain is like, nope, we've got guards up, nope, can't go there, and you can do things like um plant medicine and breathing, and you can imbibe substances to help you do that, or you can come on an experience like this, which can give you very similar, and I it can give you very similar experiences without the medicine, but also get your body involved so that your body is in the actual learning process, and it doesn't take as long, because it's having to participate in the whole process. And the guards go, whoa, we got to figure out what the body's doing. And so then you can get in, and you sometimes you don't even recognize that you're learning the lessons until afterwards, and you're like, whoa, oh my gosh, holy cow. I still have moments where I'm like, I I can't believe I did that, or that I learned that thing, or this is a thing that stands out. I'm still learning,
Mhm.
as still my body's catching up a little bit, or it's just processing through
Oh
things.
man,
But
the week after was
the week
definitely
after was,
tough.
yeah,
Giving yourself some grace, and that's why, as part of the river trip, we also will have like continued support, because it is a life altering experience, and we want to be guides in that, and offer you support that way.
so it's something that I unashamedly say, you want to get yourself on the boat, and I highly encourage you to invest in yourself. You're not even really investing in us. We're just going to help guide and facilitate the experience. Um, invest in yourself, and it is an investment, and we respect that, and we honor that for you. And so we've also made it so that it's more feasible to do. Um, we will post the registration form, because you've been here with us, and because we trust that you're in Janet's group. We're not going to ask you to go through the interview process that other people would have to go through. We'll just give you the registration link, and we've made it easy by way of this. It's a $500 deposit that holds your spot on the boat. You can pay for it up front in full if that's what you would like, and it will save you a little bit of dollars by way of processing fees. You also can pay us through a check, or through, did we say Venmo. If you want to save yourself some processing dollars, it ends up saving about $150 in processing fees, maybe 200 if you do it that way. We want you to do it in the way that feels best for you. So $500 registration, and we would encourage registration sooner than later, because Fear's going to be doing this for you. Get yourself on the boat, and then start watching what happens, how life starts unfolding in your favor for this experience. This is how Ecuador happened for me. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to come up with $3,000. And in 15 days, I had all the money. Life just unfolds. When you commit to yourself, life unfolds, and the universe starts working with you in ways that it's mind blowing.
Yeah. You
So
make the
500
commitment, and the universe shows up to support it.
Absolutely. $500 deposit. Then we have a payment due the beginning of February. And there's another payment due, I believe we put at the beginning of June. And if you want to talk about other things or ways to do that, feel free to reach out. We're happy to have conversations with you, answer questions to the best of our abilities, and help you move through the fear in really loving, beautiful ways.
Can I put the website?
I love it. I love it.
Do
Oh,
you want
people
to
are
put it
saying
here or
they
in
want to
the
go.
video post?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, either way, if you guys want to go and you want to participate in that, you can reach out to me, and I will get you those links. We'll drop the links in the replay once this hits YouTube. You'll be able to find those links in my Facebook group, wherever you guys follow me. I'll put them on Telegram. I'll put them everywhere.
We'll also give you the link for the 100-day challenge that starts tomorrow.
Yes.
If by chance you don't get right in tomorrow, that's okay. This is a process that we're learning through as well. We're offering it for free this time, and we're going to learn right along with you. So we encourage you to jump in and take some fear for a ride all together.
Yeah, cool. Just put it in the back seat.
That's right.
Here, you're in the back seat. You're not driving this time.
Yeah, I control the radio, not you.
That's right. So with that being said, we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to have Leah, will you give some final thoughts, just whatever your takeaways were from this conversation today? And then I'm going to have Jen close us out, and then what we'll do, for those of you who are a part of my members area over on greaterlifegreaterimpact.com, it's actually greatlifegreaterimpact.com. We're changing our name. But anyway, long story short, if you're a part of that membership, we're going to do a live healing session today, in about an hour from now. So you can jump over there and participate and go deeper. We're going to face our fears. We're going to bring that up in the body. We're going to process through it. So I'm going to turn some time over to you, Leah, final takeaways, and then Jen.
I think what Jen just said there is once you commit to doing something and you start moving through, whether it's an arrow that you're walking through or a river trip or a move or whatever that big step is the worst part is the anticipation. And if you continue to take steps through, you're going to find that you have the tools that you need to move through those things, but two, you're a lot braver than you think. And it's not nearly as scary when you start moving through it. And you'll find the answers as you go. I think a lot of times we get caught up that I don't know all the answers. I need to know all these things first. But really it's just moving through.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'm trying to find that Live the Questions quote by Rilke. I think it's right here. Right here. And this is what I love about the fear piece and about how I have chosen to move through it and how I have chosen to assist you in moving through it as well. He said it's Rainer Maria Rilke. And I don't know that I'm pronouncing that correctly. And if not, forgive me. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant stay into the answer. And for me, that's my pathway through fearful moments and through fearful feelings, is just choosing to take the steps, knowing that I don't have to have the answer now. And that's one thing I ask myself, do I have to have the answer now? Most of the time it's no. And you just move forward, taking fear along for the ride, trusting that by taking the actions, learning to come home to yourself, own and understand your sovereignty, that you will eventually walk into the answers when it's time for you to have them, when you will actually understand them and be able to use them in your world and in the worlds of others. So.
Yes. Yeah. And to play those two roles. I mean, because you have held that space for yourself and really worked through a lifetime of stepping into fear over and over and over and supporting yourself in that, you have that ability to be able to support others in that. And that's something that I really, really respect about you, Jen. Not many people can do that because not many people take the time to face down their own fears and to break down those walls that keep us stuck. So my last takeaway is I think that fear is a wonderful gift to all of us. I think it's a beautiful tool for helping us to access the deeper levels of our beings, to access deeper levels of intimacy between humans, because it breaks down the superficiality and it helps us to dissolve the facades that we're all walking around in these boxes of This is how life should be. This is what I'm supposed to look like. This is how I'm supposed to kind of robot my way through life, when really, if we'll just allow ourselves to let go and let go and let go and allow life to unfold, it's amazing how much living you can do when you do that. And it's one thing that I love about the two of you together, because I see you both doing this. You are living. You are living. I mean, when you, Leah, talked about putting your cell phone away and going out in nature and connecting with self, connecting with God, connecting with, whatever comes up, that is living life. And I want that. And I want to be able to help facilitate that for others. So I want to step into it. And I am going to be coming with you on this journey. So
I love it. And I love that you brought up the living piece, because that's one of our taglines is it's time to live alive.
Yeah. And to raise the vibration on this planet. And I think we do that by stepping into authenticity and stepping through the fear. It is a beautiful gift. It really is. All right, everybody. Thanks all of you for being here. Thanks for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Leah. We're going to have you back again. That's happening. And we'll post the links so that you can access them. We'll also post the link so that you can do a deeper dive, do a healing session with me in my members area. And I think that's it. All right.
I
Take care.
love it. Janet, thanks for the work that you do.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody. Thank you for your participation and your presence today. Go have an awesome rest of your day. See you later. Bye.
Yeah.